Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review, so I hope you find this one interesting. This movie is an action comedy from the UK, English language, released in the year 2017, directed by Ben Wheatley, and this film is called Free Fire. So Free Fire is set in the United States in the 70s. You've got two groups of criminals who are congregating in this abandoned warehouse to do an arms deal. So this one set of criminals are actually buying M16 machine guns, and when they get there, they're not M16 machine guns. In fact, they're something else. So this is not the way it should have gone. So there's a little bit of animosity between the two of them. But unfortunately, there is an event that occurs that makes the situation spiral out of control, and it results in a bloody shootout. So the warehouse has turned from an arms deal to a battleground of survival, and who comes out of the warehouse alive is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now, my thoughts on Free Fire. Ben Wheatley is one of my favourite directors, so for that reason I had this movie on a high expectation level. All of his other movies, barring High Rise, that I haven't actually seen yet, have been excellent. They've been very in-depth, the stories, the atmospheres, the tones of the film. He really creates an atmosphere of his own, basically a style of his own. So he's definitely a director to really look out for, and so for that reason I was expecting something very high as far as Free Fire is concerned. This is a mindless action film, but I was hoping that Ben Wheatley could actually turn it on its head and provide something a little bit new, but unfortunately, considering all the potential this film had, I thought it fell flat. This is a film that does bank on mindless violence. This actually does a very good job in its mindless violence, and it reminded me of classic Western films such as Gunfight at the OK Corral and all those classic sort of gunfights that are put on a grand scale where it feels like theatre of gunplay. And so this movie does that very well. The choreography is very good. You got bullets that are flying past. You got people getting shot multiple times. It's an absolutely crazy experience, and it's a very fun experience, and matched on with a very good sense of humour. Sharlto Copley's character was by far the best part of this movie, is that he is the comedic value, and that comedic value gives you a sense of caricature nature, and that caricature nature matches the overall insane gunplay that the film has. So that was something of an added bonus. You got Sharlto Copley's exchanges with the other characters that I thought were very humorous. In fact, it was laugh out loud funny, and I thought that this movie was a lot funnier than I anticipated. It's a very witty style of humour. So that's something that Ben Wheatley does very well. He doesn't try too hard with slapstick. It's more a case of these characters connecting together and actually having that rebound, and the way they actually do that creates that sense of wicked sort of black humour that, as I said, a lot of Ben Wheatley films have. So the cinematography was very good. It was very claustrophobic in its setting of this warehouse, and I thought the soundtrack was phenomenal. I really liked this soundtrack. It was very appropriate for the era that this movie was set in, and so as far as visuals are concerned, it was all very good. You actually go through the experience of these characters. They're getting shot, and some of them are just so unlucky getting shot so many times that you can't help but laugh at what's going on. So there's some brutal violence in there as well, which once again is very reminiscent of classic Ben Wheatley films, and I thought that the majority, the first 3/4 of this film, the continuity was very good. It was very entertaining, and it's definitely the type of film that you get together with a group of friends on a Friday night with a beer and some popcorn. But unfortunately, considering the fact that it's Ben Wheatley behind the camera, you've got actors such as Armie Hammer, Sharlto Copley, Brie Larson, Michael Smiley, you've also got Noah Taylor, who is a classic Australian actor. So all of this potential that is in the film, where I felt as though that was lackluster. I felt as though, because Ben Wheatley has done a lot of time and effort in his other films, it felt like he was exhausted, that he needed to make a movie that was just going to bank itself on reputation, as opposed to actually creating something that is going to be a genuine experience. And as I said, yes, it's mindless violence, and the violence is actually very good to watch, but unfortunately for a director of this standard, and for these actors of this standard, you put it up at a very high pedestal, because this is the expectation that a lot of quality brings. And when it doesn't reach that expectation, I thought as though it was cutting corners. I thought as though this is a movie that was going to sell films based on the actors on the actual poster, instead of giving you a film that actually wants to try and actually give you something more than just cheap thrills. And unfortunately, this is what the movie is about. Yes, it is funny, but there's not enough quality to really keep it going. So in the last quarter of the film, it does drag. It outstays its welcome, and I wanted it to finish, because after a while you start to get tired of what you're seeing. And so visuals can only take you a certain length, And then after that, you want a little bit more. And because this movie can't really provide that, I thought as though, okay, this movie needed to be cut by about 10 to 15 minutes, which wouldn't have been a bad thing if this director wasn't of the ability as Ben Wheatley. But as I said, it felt as though this is a movie that was banking on reputation instead of going out of its way to create something on a storytelling base. I thought as though this was a movie from a tired director who needed to make a movie for the sake of it and didn't really want to put as much effort in as he did with the rest of his films. So comparing it to his other movies, this movie is of a lower standard, but as I said, it's a very entertaining, fluffy kind of film that will make you laugh and it will make you flinch at the violence. So if that's your kind of thing, I would recommend it, but based on the fact that I'm such a Ben Wheatley fan, I couldn't help but feel shortchanged at the end of it. So overall, for Free Fire, I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. I was banking between 2.5 and 3, but I feel as though it deserves 2.5 because I think that the director is capable of so much more. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies and I'll see you later. Bye.